Okay, I see it's 5 o'clock. So I'll call the Transportation Commission meeting for June 17th, 2026 to order. Ariana, if you'd please read the instructions.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you're asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ariana. Ariana, Aiden was in the attendees section. I don't know what happened to him now. Do you see him?
I don't. He might be rejoining. I know I resent him his link just like a couple minutes ago. So maybe he joined. Oh, I see him now.
Okay. All right. Aiden, if you'd call a roll, please.
Yes, thank you. William Olkowicz. Don't see it. Sean O'Brien.
Present.
Barbara Harrington McKinney.
Present.
Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Denise Chess.
Here.
Pepe Barros.
Here.
Chris McCahill.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
Harold Kleems.
Here.
Lynn Olson.
Present.
And Derek Field, who has a trip, so maybe.
Yeah, he said that he may be late. You know, who knows with travel delays. Okay, so we have a quorum and we are all set to go. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? There was one slight correction in a name that Aiden sent out. So that would be the version that we would be considering for approval. Is there a motion? Alder O'Brien.
Move to adopt.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second, McKinney.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, motion is carried unanimously. Aiden, do we have anybody registered to speak under item 1?
We do not, no.
Okay, thank you. Are there any disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, seeing no hands. We will move on to item 2, Safe Streets Madison. Jessica, I believe you're going to do the presentation.
Hi, yes, I am. I'm going to be joined by Tom giving this update. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. All right. So, yeah, this is our Safe Streets Madison update, the first one of 2026. Let's see here. Whoops. All right, this is our agenda for today. We'll begin with a brief background on the Safe Streets Madison program, specifically the program's priorities, the general program process, and recent process improvements, as well as funding. Then I'll turn things over to Tom to share updates on recently completed projects and details on the projects that staff have recommended for TC's approval for this first round. The Safe Streets Madison program uses local funds to identify, prioritize, and construct smaller focused improvement projects at single intersections or along a portion of a corridor. So these improvement projects target two main concerns. One is safety for all road users, and the other is closing gaps in the pedestrian and bicycle networks so that they are accessible for users of all ages and abilities. Equity is built into these priorities. Let's see. The flow chart on this slide broadly describes the Safe Streets Madison project prioritization process. So first, in orange, we identify the problem. Problem locations can be identified by crash data, specifically fatal and serious injury crashes, as identified on the high injury network, or they can be identified by residents or elected officials making complaints or requests. Problem locations are then added to our Safe Streets Madison candidate list, and then staff score the severity of the problem, asking questions like, are we seeing severe injury and fatal crashes? Is the pedestrian or bike network gap on a high volume or high speed roadway? And is the problem along a route with high trip generators? Staff then identify a potential improvement to address that problem at every location. And we score the proposed improvement based on how well it resolves that safety problem. Then our scores from the orange piece, how bad is the problem, and the green piece, how good is the potential solution, they're combined and divided by the estimated cost of the project. This gives us a benefit cost ratio that ranks our potential projects. Staff then bring the highest ranked projects to the Transportation Commission for approval, which is where we are today. As stated on this slide, the report that created the Safe Streets Madison program states that staff will bring a proposed slate of projects to the Transportation Commission for review and approval at least twice each year. And this is our first time bringing you projects in 2026. Following your approval, staff will continue more detailed design work and projects will be constructed either later this year or in 2027, depending on design and construction complexity. So getting into process improvements, you might recall that at your April 15th meeting, the Transportation Commission made some improvements to the Safe Streets Madison prioritization process. I'm going to cover those 5 specific improvements and how each one was incorporated into this most recent round of prioritization. So first we have Safe Routes to School projects. Again, you might recall that the city was working on a systematic Safe Routes to School planning effort for dozens of schools. This planning process had similar goals to the Safe Streets Madison program, such that like the recommended improvements were meant to address safety issues, close gaps in networks, and encourage kids to walk and bike to school. But the school-related improvement projects tended to score poorly within the existing Safe Streets Madison prioritization process. So as it says on this slide, the Transportation Commission voted to add a 30% weight to a potential project's benefit score if that project was identified through a Safe Routes to School planning process. You guys also voted to dedicate a minimum of 10% of funding for each round to these Safe Routes to School projects. So of the projects staff have recommended for approval in this round, 7 are Safe Routes to School related projects. These projects are identified in Tom's section of the presentation with a red asterisk like you see here. The estimated costs of these individual projects range from simple improvements at $2,000 up to $50,000 for a single project. The cost of all 7 projects together totals an estimated $82,000, and that $82,000 represents about 26% of the funding request for this round, and that well exceeds our 10% minimum that we had set. The TC also voted to use the anticipated 30-year or lifetime cost in place of initial construction costs when calculating the project's benefit to cost ratio. The purpose of this change was to give a more accurate long-term assessment of project costs and increase the competitiveness of projects with those higher initial construction costs. We've implemented that change this round, and looking at the types of projects that are being recommended this round, you'll see a more diverse set of projects than previous years. You'll also see that we've included some concrete projects that have a high initial construction cost, but lower lifetime costs. And these kinds of concrete projects were not competitive with our previous scoring system. Moving on to maximum individual project costs. So the TC voted to direct staff to stop scoring if a proposed project's estimated lifetime cost exceeds $200,000 and to develop a formal process to redirect high-cost, high-impact projects to alternative programs. So basically, that means we were not considering projects that would cost over $200,000 in Safe Streets Madison funding. So by limiting individual project costs like we've done, the TC ensured that Safe Streets Madison program funds are not inequitably concentrated in a single project location. So while preparing this list of recommended projects, staff did find one potential project that was likely to cost over $200,000. That was the intersection improvements at Mineral Point Road and Owen Drive. This project has a high problem severity score, but a low benefit to cost ratio because of very high construction costs. It's a really complex intersection with lots of expensive improvements needed. So consequently, this project is being redirected to the Mineral Point reconstruction project, which should occur within the next few years. The Transportation Commission also voted to migrate low-scoring projects from the candidate list to an archived list after 3 years on the candidate list. So this was intended to ensure that stakeholders really see action being taken on the projects that remain on the candidate list. So as of today, projects that had been on the candidate list for 3 or more years and had a benefit to cost ratio of 10 or less, or are otherwise infeasible based on engineering reasons, they've been moved over to an archived list. And that archived list is included as a separate tab on the Safe Streets Madison spreadsheet, which can be downloaded from our program website. I want to note that we're still very much working on this archived list. So more projects will be moving there, although we do have about 100 right now. And if you see a project on the archived list that you don't think should be there, just let us know. Mistakes happen. We can move things back to the candidate list if needed. Okay. Our last process improvement. The TC also voted to direct staff to consider temporary paint and post construction or quick builds for projects that have a high impact score, but a low benefit to cost ratio because of those high construction costs. Typically, these were concrete projects. So if you look at the recommended project list, you will notice a few quick build projects. The project at Tompkins Road and Groveland Terrace uses flex post bump outs to increase deflection at an existing traffic circle. And at the intersection of Rose Road, Regent Street, and Anchorage Avenue near Stevens Elementary, we're using flex posts to create intersection bump outs that would shorten the pedestrian crossing and improve safety. Tom's going to go into detail on those projects, but I wanted to mention them here just to note that we did, in fact, include quick builds in this round because of your vote. I also want to note that doing these projects with flex posts instead of concrete not only makes these projects possible, but it also allows us to complete more projects overall. This slide is just a reminder of how staff calculate that benefit to cost ratio for potential improvement projects. Again, in orange, you can see the problem severity. In green, we see the impact of the proposed solution. These measures get combined and weighted by the purple and red boxes. Again, that red box is new. That's the 30% weight added to projects that are identified by a Safe Routes to School planning process. Ultimately, that overall benefit score is divided by the estimated 30-year cost of the proposed project. This is also new. It used to be that we just used the initial construction cost, but we voted to have the 30-year lifetime cost in this portion of the ratio. And lastly, let's talk money. The 2026 capital budget includes just over $1.6 million for the Safe Streets Madison program. When you add in the uncommitted funds from 2025, we have just over $2 million. However, we also have to subtract the estimated costs for approved but not completed projects. These are the projects that the Transportation Commission has approved, but they are still being designed or waiting to be added to an appropriate construction contract. As an aside, having a significant amount of money that we are reserving for approved but not completed projects is not surprising, and it's not a problem. It's an expected part of the process. As we've discussed, once you guys approve a slate of projects, the additional work that needs to be done before construction typically happens, that takes about a year, sometimes longer, depending on the complexity of the design. So back to the slide, when we subtract out those costs, we are left with $533,373 available for new projects in 2026. The list Tom is going to show you has total estimated project costs that amount to a bit over half of that, which is pretty consistent with how we've been dividing things up among the 2 rounds per year. And then I also want to get ahead of things, responding to a question that we received by email ahead of this meeting. Traffic Engineering has requested $2 million for Safe Streets Madison in the 2027 capital budget. That's a little bit more, obviously, than we had this year. However, we won't know until the fall if we've received that amount or our usual amounts. That's it for me. I'm going to hand things over to Tom.
Yep, thanks, Jessica. So typically how we do this, we go through some recent projects. So these are projects that we completed since the last time we were at TC, which was last October. So here's the list, and then we've got some pictures. Next slide. Milwaukee at Walbridge. This is just east of Stoughton Road. We added RRFB crossing here. And then there was some concrete work to offset the left turns, provide median refuge. This is looking east. Quick Trip is just on the left side of the picture, so this is a highly used crossing. Next slide. This is just east of that at Portland Parkway. So Portland Parkway is kind of the connection, kind of part of the Autumn Ridge path. So again, we're looking east. Just to the left is High Stand Park, and that's the park path that goes there and then eventually gets up over Highway 30. So with this project, we added the RRFB on both sides of the intersection to make that two-way bike route easier, safer. Next. This is University Avenue at Blackhawk Avenue, where we added a diagonal crossing and a median refuge and RRFB. This was kind of discussed more because it's the multi-lane, higher volume, higher speed intersection. It seems to be working well. People use it. Just reviewed some video. I think it does work well because it's not a real high volume for pedestrians or bikes using the crossing. So when it is activated, drivers notice it and they pay attention. But yeah, this was installed. I think it was pretty late last year. I think it was around December-ish. But then this was kind of also part of the Midvale discussion that we had and the north-south bike routes. So Blackhawk Avenue is now a connection across University Avenue, or a better connection. Next. Wisconsin Avenue at Gorham Street, we had this signal infrastructure project where this was a crash issue involving left turns from Wisconsin Avenue onto Gorham Street. So you can see we increased the size of that island in the median, added the center signal pole with additional signal heads to clear up that confusion for left turn, permissive versus protected. These are always protected, but I think another issue is just the dual left turn here. So this kind of clears that up. Next. This is now looking the opposite direction towards the Capitol on Wisconsin Avenue at Johnson Street. Basically the same thing where we upgraded the signal infrastructure. Next. Baldwin Street, we added bike lanes. So we remove the parking. This picture is from Wilson Street looking towards East Washington Avenue. Yeah, just added the buffered bike lanes here. This is South Baldwin. North Baldwin, we kind of did the same, but because of the hill, we alternated sharrows going downhill and parking removal and bike lanes on the uphill side. Kind of hard to get a picture of that, but that was kind of all within the same project for North and South Baldwin Street. Next. Raymond at Gilbert, this is a school crossing where we upgraded the existing RFB to add in the bump outs on either side of Raymond Road, extended that median nose for a better refuge. And this has been something we've been looking at along Raymond Road just because of how wide the crossings are there. Next. We added speed humps on Owen Drive at Lucia Crest Park. It's pretty, this is just kind of that street to the right of the picture is Blackhawk. So this is also kind of within that Midvale north-south bike route issue that we dealt with quite a bit last year. Next. This is another signal infrastructure project where we added the protected left turns from Cottage Grove Road to Acewood Boulevard. This one, just a lot of issues with that left turn. There's a quick trip just to the right here that generates a lot of traffic. And this one had been in the queue for a long time and glad to finally get it in. And I think while this was being installed, we had people driving by thanking the workers for the left turn signal. So that was good. Next. So that was the recently completed projects. Now here is the recommended list. So this is a little bit different. We added 2 projects since this was initially uploaded last Friday. I will get into both of those, but yeah, the 326,000 is a little bit higher than what it had been. But I'll go through kind of each grouping of projects here. Next. So for speed limit reductions, we've got 8 of them. Each is a 5 mile per hour reduction in the speed limit. Those are called out here. Again, with the asterisk for school locations. Next. Now here is the speed reduction experiment that we had discussed in some previous TC meetings regarding Park Street. So we've now identified locations. We've got our plan put together, and that involves installing flexible delineators on the lane lines to kind of just make a narrower field for drivers. We're going to collect before data, and then during speed data, we'll come back and present that to you after we have it. But we're including this within Safe Streets Madison just for the funding aspect of it. So the first location is here on Park Street. Next. Also Cottage Grove Road near Ellen Avenue. This is kind of the eastern end of Cottage Grove Road. Next. This is McKenna Boulevard, just east of Belver Park. Next. And then Northport Drive near Goodland. And each of these locations weren't necessarily chosen because we thought they were the highest speeding, but we had to choose locations that were near traffic cameras so we can keep an eye on how things are going, monitor the delineators. We didn't want to choose projects that were not visible to us all the time. So we're going to actively watch this while this experiment's going on. We'll probably keep it up for a couple weeks, a few weeks, depending on how it goes. But yeah, the big thing is going to be looking at the data to see if we want to expand this further. Next. So we got a few speed hump locations. These locations were typically chosen based off of crash issues. Some of you may remember Swanton Road was discussed in quite a bit of detail about 5 years ago, where we changed some parking, added islands. We've still seen crashes since then. We've still had speeding complaints. And this is one where we've kind of worked with police, fire, and also Alder Field. And then this was also identified in the southeast area plan that I think was at the previous meeting. So we've got kind of a dual project here, both on Swanton and on Thompson Drive. A couple speed humps and a chicane. We haven't really done chicanes, so this is going to be kind of new for us. But the picture there kind of shows what they would look like. I think what we would do is set this up temporarily to start with barrels and just monitor it and make sure we've got a design that we want that works for everyone. And then we would come back with the concrete. So the two locations there, Thompson Drive and Tree Lane. We still need to work on those final designs and work that out. But the good thing about chicanes are they work in places where speed humps otherwise wouldn't, because of concerns with like emergency vehicles. So yeah, kind of excited to try these out and see if we can do them in more locations where we've got these higher speed streets where in the past we kind of just said, well, we can't install speed humps. There's not much we can do to reduce the speed. So hopefully this is something that works well for us. Next. I want to call out Gene Parks Place. This is right near Allied Drive. This is part of a neighborhood resource team request. So this, just wanted to call out, it didn't have the high crashes like the other locations, but because of this location next to the park and there's a lot of kids running back and forth across Gene Parks Place, the neighborhood resource team felt really strongly about this one. So we are including this in this round. Next. For RRFBs, these have always been popular within the program. We've got these locations, 4 locations here, and then 1 location for the speed feedback board, and that's at Park Street near Burr Oak, which we've discussed in the past also. I think I get into more detail here next. Yeah, so this is, I wanted to go into this one in a little bit more detail to explain this because Monona Drive at Winnequa, so Monona Drive is a 4-lane street, undivided at this location. So there was some question as to whether we want to continue with RRFBs on these types of streets. I think our stance is that we should continue following the kind of the national guidance on this. This location, it's a difficult crossing for pedestrians. It's near the San Damiano Park. This has been a long-standing request. There's been a request for a signal here. It doesn't meet warrants. And this is right on the border between Monona and Madison. So Monona has the west side of the street, Madison has the east side. A pretty long distance between signalized intersections there. So Cold Springs to the south, Buckeye to the north, kind of in the middle. And we've approached Monona about cost sharing on this. Sounds like they're open to the idea, but they still need to go through the formal process for that. So we wanted to bring it to you for your approval or thoughts now, so we can proceed with further discussions with Monona on that. And the cost in the spreadsheet reflects kind of half of the project cost, assuming that Monona takes half of it. But yeah, this is another one where 4-lane undivided, but on crossings where the number of crossings is low, the compliance by drivers is better because they're not seeing it flashing all the time, like the issue on West Washington at the Southwest Path. So, and going with national guidance, this would be an appropriate application for an RRFB here. It's also near the Lake Loop, although the Monona Lake Loop uses Cold Springs, but there's still people that use this as a crossing kind of for that purpose. Next. The Ruskin Street crossing, this is for the ice arena. So there's events at the ice arena. There's really no crossing identified or calling this out that people tend to use. And now Ruskin is a through street, where in the past it was just a cul-de-sac. So we thought it was important to call that crossing out to get people from the parking lot to the main doors. Next. So this is Mill Street, which we've discussed with the Regent Street reconstruction project. So the area to the south, we had brought previously through Safe Streets Madison. And then the area to the north is would get bike lanes with the Regent Street project. So now we're looking at the connection. This is on the All Ages and Abilities bike network. So this is definitely something that we want to do. We would have to go through the public hearing to remove the RP3, the residential permitted parking within this area. So, there's different processes to do that. We thought the best way would be to come here first, get the approval, kind of contingent on that RP3 public hearing. So then we'll go through the formal public hearing where we can discuss, the rate of use of the RP3 and the effect that would have on that program. But overall, it's a pretty straightforward project. It requires removal of the on-street parking to get the bike lanes in. I think it just makes sense to do it now with the Regent, or in anticipation of the Regent Street. Could possibly even get it in later this summer. So next. So this is the flex post that Jessica mentioned earlier. This is Tompkins at Groveland Terrace. This traffic circle has been in for quite a while, but whenever we design these traffic circles, they're kind of designed with the thought of there being parked cars on the street. In places like this, where there tend to not be any vehicles parked, drivers can kind of just go down the curb line, not really slow down and avoid the traffic circle. So we plan to add this, or hope to add this, and especially at this location because of the Flom Road reconstruction, which is going to add traffic on Tompkins. So we'll probably look at getting some before and after speed data with this as well. But just kind of showing how the delineators will require drivers to deflect more around the traffic circle. Next. Same thing this is Walter Street. Sorry, there's no street names, but you can kind of see with the tire marks on here how people drive it. They can still speed around the traffic circle if there are no parked cars. So we're just kind of adding the permanent parked car with the delineators. Next. This is the Seagull Road at Mineral Point Road, which was also related to the Midvale bike lane discussion that we had last year. So this was a project that we kind of already brought it to you during that discussion, but now this is kind of a more formal approval of that. We initially thought we had to cut into the median, but we think we can narrow the lanes. We've got the width to not have to do that. So this would just be adding concrete for protection for the bike lane. Right now, drivers use the bike lane as the right turn lane. So this would stop that. We would add the green dashes across Mineral Point Road. and yeah, that would just kind of improve that north-south alternative routes from Midvale. Next. This is Rose at Region in Anchorage. This is kind of near the school, so this is something that has been requested for both school crossing and just regular crossing. You can see there's not sidewalk on the north side of Regent Street. And we kind of have a long history of complaints of speeding on Rose Road, especially in this area. So this is kind of a quick build using the flex post that we could get this in real quick. Next. So that was the overall list. And we just have the recommended action, but I think that is the end of the presentation. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom and Jessica. Aiden, do we have anybody registered to speak on this item?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
First, we have Nicholas Davies of Richard Street, neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. This is actually for item 3.
So do we have anybody registered for item 2?
We do not. Nobody for item 2.
Okay. All right. Then let's go to comments or questions for staff. Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that there might be an error on your list. Mineral Point between Seago and Whitney Way is actually 35 right now. So if you're dropping it down to 25, that's a 10-mile-an-hour reduction instead of a 5-mile-an-hour reduction.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. We'll check on that, make sure that's
I mean, the speed limit changes at Seago. As you go west, it goes from 30 to 35. It also gets like super wide.
Yep.
So I imagine you do have speeding problems there. But just an FYI, it's 35 right now.
Okay, thanks. We might want to relook at that one then.
You'd still like the speed reduction? You just want to look at how much, Tom?
Right. Yeah. Yep. So all these speed reductions are pretty simple projects that you know don't take long at all. A lot of them are only a couple signs, so we might just want to pull that one and take a second look at it and then bring it back rather than trying to do it here during the meeting.
Okay, Alder O'Brien, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for this presentation. I actually have a question about the Safe Streets candidate list, kind of more generally. It's not about these specific projects. As I was going back through and looking at the approved but not completed, I'm noticing that there is I think it was like 13 or 14 of them that were approved in 2023 and have still yet to be completed. And one of them seemed to be like $10 for putting up a yield sign. So I'm just kind of curious as like, what is going on with some of those? And I know some of it is longer term contracting, but just curious if there is any updates on some of them.
Yeah, there are different reasons for not getting projects completed. I think, right, something like that, a sign is something that, right, should be completed. I think it might have just been something that was overlooked. I think a lot of these other ones, a lot of it has to do with design. Most of them are, I think most of them involve concrete work. So that's typically a pretty long design timeline. And then with RRFBs and any sort of signal infrastructure, those are also on a very long timeline. So we've kind of moved to having our shop do those because in the past, we would have a contractor do that. By the time the contractor gets the contract, that's already months after the approval. And then it's usually a 6 to 9 month wait for them to order and receive materials. So some of this stuff is on a very long timeline. So there are different reasons. And then, kind of the big thing that we're running into now is just staffing level of being able to take the workload and prioritize this among everything else that's being worked on at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand that. If there's any way that you could put, I guess, I don't know how to not overly complicate a spreadsheet, but an additional note on some of these projects, especially if they're getting into the, now 3 years ago approved, just so that there is kind of an additional update on what's going on with those. I think I would appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tom and Jessica. I'm looking at the overall spreadsheet and the total benefit cost scoring and trying to think about what I'm seeing there. So again, we have like a pretty large spread where like the highest ranking project is 124, the lowest, but it's still recommended is like 3, and there's a lot of like single digit scores. It seems like some of the flex post things are those most affected by the 30-year cost, and that's why they end up with such a low cost benefit number. And I think there's also some inconsistency in how the 30-year cost is calculated for those, where sometimes it seems a factor of 20, and sometimes it's a factor of 10 from the like project cost to 30-year cost. So I'm curious about that part. But yeah, I guess what's your take on, like, now we have suggested some of these changes with the school stuff. All the high scoring ones are all reducing the speed limit, which has a low expected impact score, but it's just so cheap. And I think we've seen that before. But I think for some of the other projects, it does seem like the score distribution has changed a little bit. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the flex post is a good example that, right, we're not really sure. We're kind of assuming that we're going to have to replace it a lot, pretty close to every year, but maybe that won't be the case. And maybe I think there's still a question of, do we allow these to go, just leave them up through winter and hope that they survive? Or do we take them down to hopefully reuse them the next year? So there's some question with that. And I guess just getting them out there and seeing how it goes is going to be important with that. So really, it's just kind of our best guess right now about the long-term cost with the flex posts. The signing, right, I think the signing has such a high score because it is so inexpensive. I think if anything, we should maybe relook at the expected impact with the signing. That might be high. And it also comes, we also have the issue of taking the speed limit as an example. If it's just 2 speed limit signs, we kind of have the same expected impact on safety as if it's a long corridor and there are, 10 or 20 signs. So the cost could be a factor of 10 higher, but the impact on safety and the scoring is the same. So we've always had that issue of project size and then the impact on safety. So it's kind of hard to score those.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I remember some of those prior discussion of like, yeah, if you lower the speed limit on a 5-mile stretch of road, I mean, shouldn't that have a higher impact than
Yeah.
if you put like a single signal backing plate, which is also cheap? Yeah. I think what you say about the flex posts makes a lot of sense. Like we just got to try it and maybe not care too much about the immediate score. And then as we collect data on how often we have to replace them, also maybe once we start, at some point we start trying other like, pin-on concrete or stuff like that, that places like Milwaukee have tried, which we have a high upfront cost, but maybe lower maintenance. And so we'll probably refine the project cost and the expected 30-year cost. And I think the other thing, like, I mean, the whole point of the flex post is that we try something now. If it works, then the idea would be they would be replaced with something more permanent, either out of the Safe Streets Madison program or out of some other pot of money, or when a reconstruction happens. So I think, yeah, that all makes some sense to me. One low scoring and expensive project is like the protected intersection at Seago and Mineral Point. With that one, it seems like maybe the impact scores are kind of low. Like, if you get 10% for a speed limit reduction and here you get a protected intersection and you only get a 25% improvement.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those situations where there aren't a lot of crashes, like documented crashes, but it's kind of the comfort, stress level, and conflicts that are still there, but it's just not documented anywhere.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, that's what I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? So as I understand the request, we're going to delay the speed reduction on Mineral Point Road, correct, Tom?
Yes.
So that would take the total from 326,500 to 324,500, correct?
Correct.
And it would also be subject to the RP3 public hearing for South Mill Street and appropriate TC approval to remove the RP3 parking.
Yep.
Would that be correct?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, along those lines, question with the Mill Street. Have you had any discussions with the alders?
Yeah. So that's been the reason we've been waiting is we haven't had any sort of public engagement yet. So the fact that there's a public hearing with the RP3 removal, we plan to have that in anticipation of that public hearing rather than this meeting. So I guess that's not sure when we would bring it. I don't think it wouldn't be the next meeting, but we would hope to do that this summer. But right, with some level of public engagement, and then directing people to attend that meeting to speak on the removal of RP3.
Right. Yeah, I just don't want to have a Midvale situation again where like we approve something, then people get upset. And so I think, doing the public engagement in a way that is meaningful and like reflects the fact that it's on all ages and abilities network and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, thinking about who we engage and how we engage them, I think is really important with this so that we don't find ourselves in a bad spot. Sorry, one more question I noted down and forgot about previously about the Monona Drive RRFB. did you look at any other possible solutions to the problem? Because I mean, I think everybody would agree that the problem, yes, is there, but as you said, is RRFB the right solution, and what other options are there?
So we did look into signalizing. I think we went through the full analysis for that, and it's just far below meeting any warrant on that. Beyond that, signing and marking, there are existing adequate signing and marking out there. So this was kind of the next step. Beyond that, I don't know that we had any other sort of larger projects that would change Monona Drive. So yeah, that's kind of how we get to RRFB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I guess there's no way to have like an island crossing or anything because there's no median.
Yeah, we looked into the widths, and yeah, trying to fit an island in there, and they're just we would have to reduce lanes to do that, which would become a bigger project, and then yeah.
I wonder if there's any combination with like the flex post, depending on how that project goes, to like, yeah, have some RFB and maybe some flex posts. Yeah, I don't know. All right, thanks.
Yeah, that one it's just so, I think it's kind of just been ignored because of the line of Monona and Madison right there, that we need to come up with something that works for both, that we can both approve. So it sounds promising on their end. So yeah, we're hoping that this will work.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And first, I'm on my phone, so I might lose connection. I want to go back to Harold's question when he was talking about the public engagement meeting. So what's before us is a presentation. You're not looking for any action from the Transportation Commission. Is that correct? And those public meetings will be scheduled, you said sometime in the summer. Was I correct in hearing that?
So that's just for the Mill Street project. We are looking for approval of these. I guess the approval of the Mill Street bike lanes is just because of the city process for that removal of the RP3 parking. That has to go through a separate public meeting or a public hearing to remove that. So there's always been a question of process of how do we approve it? Do we approve it here and then there, or do we, in the past, we've kind of approved it at Safe Streets Madison, then the next meeting we have another. So the way we were kind of decided to approach this one is approve it here, but it would be contingent on that approval. But instead of telling the public about two different meetings, just try to tell the public about one meeting that they should attend to have their voice heard on the subject, rather than being, well, go here and then also go there. So, yeah.
And I think, can I just insert this, please, Alder? I think, Tom, our discussions in the past is we need to know that the Transportation Commission supports the project as you've proposed it. Otherwise, we'd go to the public hearing, get that RP3 approved, and then bring it to the TC, and TC says, no, you should do this. Then we'd have to go through potentially,
Right.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
right.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. And Madam Chair, is that I have an item before the another committee, and if I leave and come back, would that affect your quorum?
No, we're really good tonight in terms of attendance.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Ann. Just a clarification. I think you were listing the things as far as what you were modifications to the project list. I think you also have to say that the Monona Drive is contingent on getting the city of Monona to agree to the cost share, correct?
Right.
I guess it's up to you, Tom, because you've proposed only half the cost, but Bill's got a good point that that project wouldn't go forward unless Monona approves their half of it. Would that be right?
Right. I suppose that's a question for you to consider, is that it's ranked here in the spreadsheet based off half the overall project cost. So
I don't have any problem with the project, but whether we have to fund it in its entirety, I'm hoping that we can get the city of Monona to agree to the cost share, I guess. But I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I think the way I'd recommend doing it is approving it here, assuming, right, kind of contingent on City of Monona. If that falls through, and we would bring it back and explain that, and then I suppose have another
vote on it.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
If it falls,
That's what.
you'd need more money, so you'd have to come back, right, Tom?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Just thought I'd raise that issue.
Yeah, no, great point, Bill. So at this point, we have a request to fund $324,500, which is $2,000 less than what was shown in the updated spreadsheet. And the recommendation would be to approve that reduced recommended project list contingent on the RP3 public hearing for South Mill Street and appropriate TC approval, and the City of Monona approval of the Monona Drive at Winnequa, project. Have I got that all right, Tom?
Sounds right. Yep.
Okay, comments or questions? Harold?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to make that motion to approve the list as you described.
Okay,
Is
thanks.
that in order?
All right, Alder O'Brien, is that a second?
Yeah.
Thank you. Harold, did you wish to speak to your motion?
It's a good list of projects. Let's get them built. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks. And I have a particular fondness for the RFP on Moreland Road because I live near there, and yeah, it's really hard to cross that street. So, and I see lots of kids having a really hard time crossing that street. So I'm particularly fond of that particular request. So I'll just repeat, we have a request to approve $324,500, which is delaying the speed reduction on Mineral Point Road. And that would be subject to the RP3 public hearing for South Mill Street and appropriate TC approval, and City of Monona approval of the Monona Drive at Winnequa project. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. So please raise your hand. Okay, and I'll write that up for Aiden right after the meeting so I don't forget from my scratch notes there. All right, thanks so much, everybody. These are great projects. And as we all know, there's many Sixth Streets Madison projects on the list, right, Tom? So it's great to see these. And I think one of the benefits of the changes that we approved back on April 15th is that we will likely see more projects because we're pushing the higher dollar ones off in other directions. And so we're able to accomplish a little bit more. And I also think the Safe Routes to School enhancer is really helping with those projects as well. So thanks to staff for bringing those enhancements forward, and it's really great to see them used in this very first time. So round of applause to staff. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So let's move on to item 3, and we do have someone registered to speak here. Is that correct? Aiden, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We have 2 people.
Okay. All right. So we'll have the presentation, and then we'll go to the public, and then we'll have questions and discussions. So Chris, are you doing this?
I think I'm gonna start off at least.
Oh,
Aaron
okay.
Canton.
Oh,
with
thank you so much.
engineering.
Yep.
I will start off, and then I'm sure Chris and Tom will help chime in and answer questions as needed. So I am sharing my screen. Can you confirm you see a PDF?
It would be great if you can make it full screen because some of us are on laptops.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me make sure that comes in full. Share the application. Does that look any better?
Well, I think you've just got the slides, but we still see your taskbar and everything. If you just make the slide full screen.
Oh, here, I can also zoom in too. That might help.
That helps.
Okay.
Well, certainly let me know if anything needs to be zoomed in as we go. So thanks everyone. This is the John Nolan Phase 2 project. Bringing this informationally to the commission. Likely we'll be back with full geometry approval at a later date. So shown here is an overview of all the phases current and future for John Nolan Drive. Obviously, everyone is well aware. Phase 1 is in construction along the causeway. Those limits are just north of Lakeside Street through the Broome Street intersection. Currently under construction. Progress project is going well, expecting a significant phase switch to start work on the Lake Monona side, likely next month in July. So that project is going to be continuing construction through summer of 2027. And then phase 2, the focus of today's meeting, will be from just north of Olin Ave to north of Lakeside Street, and that is currently scheduled for 2028. And then phase 3, scheduled for 2029, will be John Nolan from the Beltline through Olin Ave intersection, as well as Olin Ave itself from Wingo Creek to John Nolan. And then a note of Madison Lakeway is planning a portion of their park enhancement along the Lake Monona shoreline 2027 through 2028 on the coattails of the engineering project on the causeway. So for phase 2, the focus of today, this is an overview exhibit, roll plot for that whole phase. It's a bit smaller and less to kind of chew on than the first phase, which had a lot going on, but still obviously a significant street. And, you know, the project in itself will include pavement replacement across the full stretch. The limits are going to be north of Olin Ave, so this phase won't get into the Olin Ave intersection, and then through the Lakeside Street intersection, tying into where phase 1 will leave off. So this phase 2 will include the Lakeside John Nolan intersection, which we'll look at a zoomed in exhibit later in the presentation, as well as the Sale Street and Lakeside intersection. So in general, the project largely motivated by pavement replacement. That pavement is beating up faster and faster every day, and we need to get that replaced. And there is one bridge structure on the project over Wingo Creek. That bridge is actually in pretty good shape, and we're planning for some surface level and wing wall repairs, but not a full replacement of that bridge. In general, the project is planning to put back the same number of lanes that exist out there today on this phase. The lane drops will be brought up to current WSDOT design code, elongating slightly per the standards. And then we also have some bike and ped improvements, largely at the Lakeside intersection, that we'll get into. So zooming into it, you know, first off, a look at the existing roadway. It's, as much of John Nolan does, has that highway feel with wide lanes, more typical on highway, cross slopes that are typical to larger roads. So we're looking to urbanize the street, similarly continuing the work of phase one currently under construction. So today there are 12 and 11-foot lanes, some excessive pavement. So we are looking to narrow those to what has been pretty city standard on projects like University Ave, have a 10, 10 and a half, and 11-foot lane, overall reduction of 5 feet of pavement that we won't have to build or maintain over time, and allows for increasing the green space, particularly a median for the existing or proposed trees. And then looking at the Lakeside intersection, similarly has that very highway feel, significant pedestrian crossings, lack of sidewalk on Lakeside, on the south side, some extra lanes that can be modified. And so zooming in here, we have a schematic showing the proposed new Lakeside John Nolan intersection. So a couple things to point out. In general, narrowing curb radii and increasing islands wherever possible, maintaining the truck turning movements that need to be maintained, but reducing pavement space and creating as much sidewalk curb ramp space as we can. Removing the southbound right turn lane on John Nolan onto Lakeside Street, creating a through and right lane southbound here. Removing that extra lane gives us some more space, quite a bit more space on this northwest corner here, and helps to reduce the crossing distance on that north side crossing of Lakeside. And this area is reduced by 30 feet with this proposed design. As discussed, the existing conditions, there is no sidewalk on the south side of Lakeside between Sale and John Nolan. So with our railroad coordination for this project, we'll be extending panels as needed and adding some additional widened sidewalk. I think we're in the 7 to 8 foot range of this sidewalk on the south side, widening it as much as we can given the right-of-way constraints and the space needed in the terrace space for the railroad gates and signals. So adding that connection has been long sought out by the neighborhood, and some adjustments to the bus pads in this intersection, working with Metro on the locations of those, so that bus pad, south pad, will move to the south to allow for larger buses to queue there. The Cap City Trail itself will all be redone and widened to have that bike ped separation. That work will be redone with phase one. So we are not planning to get into that and looking to maintain the Cap City Trail in this stretch as much as possible throughout construction of this phase two. In the way things are being phased, is we should be able to maintain that pretty well. And furthermore, we'll have new signals and lighting along the whole project limits, bringing everything up to code. And then zoom in a little bit more here at the Sale Street Lakeside intersection, looking to tighten this up as much as we can. So bringing in this corner a bit to widen out those curb ramps and neck down the intersection. There is a limit of how much we can tighten this intersection given some larger trucks that are turning in and out, going to the traffic engineering shop down Sale Street. So we tightened it up as much as we can, given those larger vehicles, as well as the kind of anticipating needing some hard medians on Lakeside on either side of the railroad tracks. So given those constraints and working through what type of vehicles go through there, we've tightened that up as much as we can here. And have also included a small truck apron on this southeast corner at Sale and Lakeside to help accommodate the larger turn movements. So that is the overview for Lakeside. Moving on to some of the bike ped or pathway connections. You know, when let me zoom back a little bit to the overview. We had looked at a bike path connection on the west side of John Nolan, and given Sale Street as a pretty good bike connection between Lakeside near John Nolan, the underpass under Wingra, we focused on looking at a connection on the west side of John Nolan from Wingra south to Olin Ave. Apologize for jumping around a little bit here. So we took a look at this red line here and what it would take to build that path connection that would largely serve future development in this area. And although it is feasible, the cost estimate was quite high, given it would be built within a pretty substantial railroad ditch. So there would need to be some large retaining walls on either side. And so we took a good look, but it's somewhere in the range of 600 to 700,000. And that was beyond the federal funding that we had for this project. So we've, at the moment, dismissed that dashed red alternative and instead are looking at the green and bluish lines here. So, you know, with future development that's anticipated in this area between John Nolan and Olin, there would be an opportunity to get a path connection on the backside of those developments, the green line, and connect to the existing Wingra Creek path underpass, which would really be probably the most direct connection for those developments. And that will obviously have to come with time as things change out here and develop. And then the other option is the bluish line here of creating their widened sidewalk or path on the north side of Olin Ave along those future development areas. And that's something that could be evaluated during phase 3, which will include reconstruction of Olin from John Nolan to Wingra. This section of Olin is maintained by the county. So a phase 3 coordination, which is going to be starting soon, will include coordination with the county. And that is the summation of the John Nolan phase 2 project. So again, we're looking at construction in 2028 for this, immediately following the phase 1 completion. And yeah, I can open that up now to questions and comments.
First, thanks, Aaron. First, we're going to go to the public and then we'll have questions and comments. So who do we have in?
So first we have Nicholas Davies of Richard Street, neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Thanks. Yeah, I think this project does include some improvements compared to current conditions. But from looking at the design of the Lakeside intersection, I'm just not clear how I would be expected to navigate that on a bike. To the west of the intersection, cyclists currently ride on street, and to the east of the intersection, Lakeside has on-street bike lanes. So it seems to me that the simplest and probably cheapest option would be to continue the on-street bike lanes in either direction to and through this intersection. I mean, is that what the Netherlands would do? Probably not, but they'd be in the context of a whole different system. Is it what France would do? From recent experience, I would say absolutely. Alternatively, if cyclists are expected to navigate this intersection as path users, this looks like it'd be very long and complicated. If you're going eastbound, you'd be on street to start, then you'd make a right turn onto the southbound segment of path. Then you go left across John Nolan Drive in the south crosswalk, stop in the little triangle, make an abrupt 90-degree turn, cross north across Lakeside to join the Cap City Trail, go right if you're continuing southeast, where you join Lakeside again and you go left. You know, likewise, if you're headed westbound, then you'd probably turn right off of Lakeside onto the Cap City Trail, turn left to take the northern crosswalk leg. That leads you to a little bit of path that makes a 90-degree turn to the left, and then you're facing 120 degrees away from Lakeside Street, which may be a very challenging turn. If you want cyclists to be path users here, then there needs to be ramp connections from those on-street facilities to and from sidewalk level. The turns need to be bikeable curves. And ultimately, if it involves multiple cycles of the traffic light and entire minutes of delay, then people just aren't going to do it. But there does need to be some bike facility here. The intersection and its approaches are substandard today. The intersection is huge and deadly, and I don't think it would be hard to fix this. And I don't see any reason to settle for anything less. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, seeing no hands, thanks so much for coming. Who else do we have, Aiden?
Next, we have James Kreft of Fish Hatchery Road, neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
All right. Hello. So I live or used to live very nearby on the Sheridan Street and heavily use this intersection as both a ped and a cyclist. And I really appreciate the pedestrian improvements. 30 feet less is pretty awesome. At the same time, there's certainly more that could be done, especially when we think about, as Nick noted, there's really not a great way to interact with this, even this new intersection as a cyclist either. Ideally, there would be, with a plan to have infrastructure on Lakeside Street. I don't know if that's ever going to be a possibility, but we should be trying to accommodate cyclists in some way, even if it's, for example, a lot of people move up onto the north side sidewalk to be able to connect to the Cap City Trail, and facilitating that with a widened sidewalk and some sort of connection at the Sale intersection could be at least a small compromise to accommodating the cyclists versus what's currently planned there. And there's plenty of room in that intersection. It's huge to be able to get a few more feet for a wider intersection there. So that's it. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Thanks for working on this. This is certainly an improvement, but there certainly could be more to be done.
Thanks so much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thanks so much for coming. Is that all we have, Aiden?
Correct. Yep, that's everyone.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions for staff? Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the Lakeside intersection. At first, I interpreted the green as bike lanes, but then I realized they're terraces. But it looks like there's a sidewalk from Sale Street to John Nolan, and then a sidewalk south to that crosswalk where I guess just below the red indication that says reduce noise speed. Is that correct, that there's a sidewalk along that whole stretch?
Correct. It is sidewalk, and it'll be wider than typical 5 feet. Really maximizing as much width as we can. I think there's constriction based on the railroad gate and signals. So I believe we're looking in the range of 7 to 8 feet on the sidewalk on the south side of Lakeside, and then wider, closer to 10, connecting to the crosswalk that crosses John Nolan on the south side of the intersection. And then also a continuation of sidewalk to the bus stop for southbound John Nolan buses.
Okay, where's the bus stop?
Right here would be where if my cursor comes in, that would be where the front of the bus would stop.
Basically where it says number 8.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I see. It does say number 8, bus stop. Okay, got it. So I'm surprised you didn't put a bike box in on westbound Lakeside so that people coming off the Capital City Trail could get into a position where they can just go straight across onto Lakeside. I think several of the speakers mentioned that this is kind of an awkward crossing, but I think most bicyclists that are, say, southbound on the Capital City Trail and planning on going westbound, at least my experience is that you either take that first sidewalk that's slightly farther west and you just kind of shimmy your way into the position to go straight across, or you go all the way down to where the Capital City Trail kind of dumps onto Lakeside, where the word Lakeside is, and then you kind of backtrack to get into a position to cross. So I think a bike box would be a very useful thing to have there, so that there is some indication to both drivers and bicyclists that to expect people to be getting into position to head across on Lakeside. Is there a reason that wasn't put in? I guess I'll also just say I don't see, except for when there's events, I don't see a lot of right turns from Lakeside onto John Nolan northbound. And so having a right turn lane there just seems kind of, I don't know, excessive. Especially because there are a lot of people who are going to want to make that transition from southbound Capital City Trail onto westbound Lakeside. And having a right turn lane just kind of encourages people to not look for them. So I'm just kind of thinking what we might do better at that intersection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to be clear, we're kind of, I mean, bike boxes could be in both directions, but you're specifically talking about southbound Cap City Trail getting in a position to cross John Nolan going westbound down Lakeside.
Correct.
So a bike box in this area.
Yeah, because I think that's the more awkward transition. Like if you're coming down Lakeside, if you're eastbound on Lakeside and you're already on the road, going straight across and then getting onto the Capital City Trail is a little easier, at least in my experience, because you just go straight across, and then that little stub of Lakeside is not super high traffic, again, unless there's an event going on. So you just kind of go straight across, and then you can jump on the Capital City Trail by making a left turn. Because there's not that much traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're going south through Olin Park, then you just continue in the lane. So
yeah, I think that the bike box idea makes a lot of sense to queue up properly. I will say we did discuss the right turn lane and the through lane westbound Lakeside Street, and I know there was a concern of, even though that's a small right turn movement, having it, in the times when there are events, when there is the Christmas light show or other events, having it, could help prevent queuing back up over the Cap City Trail crossing, which obviously that's a pretty major, right? That's the most major bike movement through here is Cap City Trail onto Lakeside Olin Court. So I guess I would refer to traffic engineering on how that right turn lane and a bike box would go together there. But that does seem like a worthwhile idea. And I will also mention that we are widening out the crossings really at all corners to kind of 10-foot path standard path width to get across John Nolan. So, getting it'll be more bikeable to cross at the crossings across John Nolan and Lakeside. But obviously there's some tight turns and some hard movements to make that make it awkward.
I guess I'll just say that part of my concern, I mean, you can have, if you want 2 lanes there so that people can make a right turn, that's fine. But doing a dedicated right turn lane, I think just encourages drivers to not look for other people who might be crossing their movement. And, sort of the free right turn, just, if there's a bunch of people who are trying to get off the Capital City Trail at that first little stubby crosswalk, the farther west, right at the crosswalk that goes over to the triangle, I'm just concerned that right turners are not going to be looking for them. So I think that getting rid of a dedicated right turn lane might be the better move. And you still can have 2 lanes there, one for basically people making a right turn and one straight across, but just don't put an arrow in it. I'm done. That's all my. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Robbie. Alder O'Brien, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I guess I've had the possible disprivilege of driving down this road every single day for the last 7 years because my office is on Olin, and Lakeside Street Cafe is my office away from office. I'm surprised that the Sales Street intersection is as wide as it is. I don't think I've seen anything more than an F-350 driving down that, and that just looks quite wide for the size of trucks that I've seen driving down that. But I know this isn't the final geometry, but just as kind of a note, it seems overly wide for the traffic that I've seen driving down it, and I think it could be tightened up even a little bit further than that, recognizing it's not the final geometry yet. And then I guess westbound Lakeside Street, I agree with Robbie. I don't think we need a right turn lane there. I don't see the traffic there that would require that. I mean, I don't know if there's counts available for that, but I think that's just an extra lane that we don't particularly need. And I'm also kind of, I guess, was hoping for more improvements to that kind of whole section there for the, I guess, westbound Lakeside Street kind of by number 4 and 3. I don't think there's that much traffic that justifies that much pavement. But I could be wrong if the counts show otherwise.
Yeah, I can touch on a couple of those points. The Lakeside and Sale Street intersection, it does seem wider than you would expect, and we kind of went back and forth quite a bit with the design consultants on that. And it's not final at this point, but we did learn from the TE shop that they get pretty frequent daily 65-foot semis. So we do need to accommodate that. Otherwise, they would have to find another route to the shop. And I think, although this is an ideal, alternative routes would be going more through the neighborhood west of John Nolan. So this is probably the best place for them to be coming in and out of. But we will continue to work to neck down that intersection as much as we can. It was a constriction of the large vehicles, the railroad crossing, and making those turns work. But I think that's something we'll continue to tinker with. The additional the 2 lanes and the right turn lane westbound Lakeside is something we can look into. Removing that could provide the ability to do something more for on-street bikes. So I think that's something we can bring back in a future meeting. And the last point, I'm not sure if it was kind of specific to the turn lane.
Yeah, I'm not a super big fan of the turn lane, the little triangle. I think it just seems, I don't know, possibly, I don't want to say like over-engineered, but like not necessary for the amount of traffic that I've seen like turning down into Lake Street and using that intersection. I feel like I would see like one car, maybe two at max every time I drive past it. And I don't actually recall people turning right down there because I feel like if you're going to go use the boat ramp, you're going to take a different path to get there. But I could be wrong on that because I don't have a boat.
It is more the type of vehicle than the volume of vehicle, because there are a decent amount of trucks and trailers with boats making that right turn. And adding that slip ramp, creates that space to handle that larger turning movement or that awkward turning movement. And the main thing I would say is that presence of the island actually helps to shorten your overall crossings. If there was a sidewalk or a path on the southeast corner here, I think there'd be more desire to remove that island to create a more direct connection. But the fact that as it stands, the crossing is across John Nolan and then immediately across Lakeside, you actually have the presence of the island there shortens the overall bike and ped crossing through traffic here. So although it doesn't always work out this way, I think the island actually kind of helps the bike ped movement. And we are pretty substantially increasing the size of that island, which is pretty small today.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Harold, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Aaron. Funny you should mention the sidewalk on the south side of Lakeside Street. I mean, is there an opportunity here, or is there a long-term plan to add a sidewalk on Lakeside Street and Olin Turbo Court? Because I mean, if we want to do that, I mean, there's the mature trees on the south side, but there are no trees on the north side. So, you could shift maybe everything a little bit and have enough space for a sidewalk. Is that something that's been looked at, or is there like a vision for what Lakeside and Olin Turbo Court they're supposed to look like?
At the moment, we've kept the existing design from a while back. We took a look at the Olin Court, the kind of whole corridor from along John Nolan. I think this kind of goes back to early planning for phase 1 of John Nolan. And we kind of landed on the existing condition on Olin Court was preferred from any sort of side path along John Nolan or along Olin Court. We certainly could look into a sidewalk connection on the south side of Lakeside, but with potential tree impacts and more or less keeping the existing footprint on Lakeside, because the limits of this John Nolan project only go a little bit into the intersection. We were kind of staying away from major curb changes there.
Okay. Yeah, I just vaguely remember, seeing some of the grand plans of, in the context of the Lakeway project, but then also the Olin Park master plan and all that the whole area might look different if all of that comes through. And then thinking about, okay, you want to walk from Lakeside over there. Yeah. So maybe just look at some of those longer scale plans and see if there's anything that makes sense. One written comment that came in shortly before the meeting asked the question, the causeway is 2 lanes. Lakeside itself doesn't have a whole lot of volume. The big volume comes in at Olin. Why do we need 3 lanes? And maybe the more limited question is, why do we need 3 lanes north of Lakeside?
I can jump in on that one, Aaron. Yeah, so you might remember we did a test out here. I actually think it might have been 2 summers ago. The test from our results during that, we thought that under the current conditions, it could probably work. I think since then, the consultant did a study and modeled that. And with the future conditions, expected future conditions in 2050, things did not operate very well, even at the Lakeside intersection. And what that led to then with we had the MPO do some projections overall with traffic diversion that Olin Avenue would see a pretty significant increase in traffic and Lakeside. So we also met with WSDOT to discuss this, to see if there's a potential for lane reduction to try to fit in a path on the west side. They overall did not like the results of the projections and the modeling, especially in the 2050 year. And, you know, we're kind of on the side of John Nolan Drive is there to take traffic. If it does start to fail or get congested where it's leading to diversions through the neighborhood, I think we would prefer to have that traffic on John Nolan Drive rather than causing issues through the neighborhood. So that's pretty much, yeah, we looked into it in a lot of detail, and we've got those studies available. But I think the biggest thing is just the projecting out of future traffic and growth that the 3 lanes are needed through Lakeside with those projections.
Okay, that's helpful. I mean, I guess my immediate reaction is that I think that somewhere in Complete Green Streets or elsewhere that like we should build the types of streets for the future that we want. And so if you rely on like, yeah, if we're building a bigger street, volumes are going to go up, then that's what we're going to get. And if we keep volumes down, then maybe diversion happens or traffic will evaporate. I mean, I'm really thankful that you did the test because models are one thing, doing a test is another thing. So in my opinion, I think this deserves more serious consideration. Can you remind me what's the role of WSDOT in all of this?
Yeah, I was gonna just jump in on that. So when you this project was selected for federal funds for approval, so basically you have to follow their facilities development manual on the entire project, and that's kind of what, you know, why we met with them early on, just to kind of feel them out. And essentially, you know, they have to sign off on this because of the federal funds, and so does FHWA eventually. But a lot of times FHWA follows WSDOT's lead. So my takeaway from that meeting was they did not have any desire to entertain this idea. So with the federal funds, that is a tough issue, and this one is slated to get $4.5 million of federal funds, so it's a pretty significant amount.
I'm shocked to hear that WSDOT has that position. Did not expect that at all. Okay. All right. Different topic. The west side, the path alternative. If you don't mind going to that slide. Yeah. Thank you. Is there any possibility to get a bridge across Wingard Creek if that green alternative gets built to connect, to have like a continuous connection from Sail to path to new path?
Probably not with this project, but definitely a possibility in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, I mean, yeah, I get it. Bridges are expensive, so, you know, but yeah, I think that as you plan the project, I guess keeping that in mind, and I don't know if if the grade differ between different places, but yeah, I think that would be a great connection, I think.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
And then can you go back one slide up to the intersection diagram. Yeah. I think, Aaron, you had mentioned hardened medians. Is that at the railroad crossing, like the yellow things? Are those hardened medians? Did I understand that right?
Yeah, I may have misspoke there. I'm not totally sure what is going to be there, but we anticipate some sort of median. It may be something mountable to make some of the truck turning movements a bit easier to deal with. It may be something hardened, which is kind of what we've been seeing with similar railroad crossings in quiet zones, like at Willie Street, recently put in on Broome Street. So some of that is a little bit TBD on the railroad coordination. I think we will work to kind of minimize how much median is needed there. But we do need the railroad sign off and approval to get the project, to get the funding for it.
Yeah. Right. The point is to discourage people from driving around the gates with those.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then, yeah, in this chart, I mean, I think for me, a lot of people talked about bike movements. And I think based on the diagram, the most awkward one is like the northernmost crossing. So say you come from the Cap City, you cross in the pedestrian crossing, and then you want to continue onto Lakeside. That seems like, in terms of angles, and like, yeah, if we could somehow have a ramp, and I know there's the gates and that might be challenging, but that to me seems like the most awkward movement to make. So looking if that can be somehow improved would be great.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. I've made the comment myself on just making some smoother turns, getting rid of the hard right angles, and as much as possible widening any sidewalk that we're building. It's the restriction of the railroad gates, the lane width that needs to be available for truck movements. So there are restrictions, but we can definitely make it as comfortable as we can given them.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for all the work on this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. I won't go too much on what Harold was talking about, but it would be nice if you could convince WSDOT to put 2 lanes on the north side. We're down to 1 lane right now, and I don't think we're seeing a lot of diversion onto Lakeside and Olin. I think it's more diversion onto Park and Johnson, Gorham, and University. But that seems like it would be difficult to convince them of. Can you remind me, are the paths underneath, the bike paths along the creek that go underneath John Nolan, are those part of this project?
So the existing Wingo Creek path underneath John Nolan are not a part of this project at this point. All those path sections are actually in pretty good shape. They've been resurfaced within, the last 8 years or so. So those are not at this point a part of the project, and the Wingra bridge over Wingra is not fully getting replaced, just kind of surface level partial replacement along the wings and the surface as needed.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to ask because one of our written comments noted on the, I think that's the northeast side of John Nolan Drive, those turns are about 90 degrees, and was wondering if there's potential for change. But if they're not part of the project, then it's not really relevant.
Thanks, Alder. Pepe, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. And thanks, Aaron. Aaron, would you mind going back to the slide, the one with all the colors and the numbers showing the intersection in Zoom? Awesome. And I'm going to try to not reiterate all the other questions that have been asked. I think they represented a lot of the questions that I had. I still have one remaining. So when you and this is something that has happened to me a lot because I live in the neighborhood. If you are biking on Lakeside Street, eastbound on the left side in this case, and you cross the railroad and you wanna wait for the green light to cross and get onto the capital city trail and go to the city. If there are no cars there as a cyclist, I am just not sure if the sensors on the street recognize you to kind of call for the green. So I've had to just choose to bike on the sidewalk and press the button instead because it would otherwise take very long. Are you guys considering like what kind of sensors are going to be there? Is it going to be able to sense a bicycle, or is the general assumption here understanding that a cyclist that want to make a left turn from Lakeside into the Capital City Trail towards downtown is supposed to hop on the sidewalk?
Yeah, it's a good question, Pepe. I think we can just plan for that. We can just note that and plan for proper detection for bikes on that leg of the intersection.
Awesome. Yeah, I would appreciate that. Many times I was kind of like hoping there was like an extent, like a longer button or some way to make it happen so you don't wait so long. But if you can integrate that, I think that would be a great win. In addition to what Harold said of like, if you had to go into the sidewalk, then working on that sharp corner there to make it a little bit more feasible would be another alternative or an addition to it. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Pepe. Other comments or questions? A lot of good feedback. Any other comments or questions for staff? Harold?
Northbound bus stop is there a northbound bus stop?
There is, yep. Right here, right by the 5. So pretty close to where the existing, right. There's an existing pad there, moving that slightly.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see the 8 for the bus stop isn't the lawn. Okay. I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, that seems like a fine position and close to the crosswalk and all that. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Harold. Other comments or questions? A lot of great discussion, a lot of great feedback. Any last questions from staff for TC members? Aaron, Chris, Tom, you all have what you need?
Yes, this is great.
Okay. All right. Last chance? Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
We will move on to item number 4, which is the Moreland Road Path. Do we have anybody registered to speak on this one, Aiden?
They're not registered wishing to speak, but we do have one registrant in support, but does not wish to speak.
Okay. All right. So Aaron, are you doing this one as well?
Yep.
Okay.
You're stuck with me for this item and the next one.
Yeah. Okay. No, I attended your last public information meeting, which was very, very informative and helpful since, again, this is in my neighborhood. So go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciated you being able to make that. Yeah, so the next project here is the Moreland Road Shared Use Path. This is, I think, an exciting project. It's TAP funded, so we've got federal funds coming in to help cover the cost. The project location is south of the Beltline on Moreland Road, right by the MMSD Nine Springs wastewater treatment plant. So the red line is the limits for this. It's on Moreland from Wayland Drive to where Moreland Road splits off. And I believe Southtown Road is City of Monona. So this is a stretch of Moreland that does not have any existing sidewalk. It has on-street bike lanes, but is lacking in pedestrian and safe bike facilities, and especially important given the location of an elementary, middle school, and neighborhood center just to the west on Rimrock Road. So yeah, this is just a quick schematic of the existing conditions on Moreland Road. Travel lane in each direction, on-street bike lane, and parking lane through most of this stretch of the project. A fairly high volume, especially high speed roadway with a curve makes those on-street bike lanes, given that they're unprotected, not feel safe, not all edges and abilities. And then again, no sidewalk on either side of the street. Some example pictures of the unprotected bike lane, a stretch with parking lane. And also shows, there are some tight stretches where we've got, this is on the south side along the mobile home park. We've got some large trees, utility poles directly behind the curb. So there are some constraints areas to work in, but essentially what we're proposing to do is remove the on-street bike lanes and majority of the on-street parking, shift the south side curb into the street, leaving a 26-foot wide street, 2 11-foot travel lanes, which is 26 is the minimum for a street with transit in both directions. So shifting in that south side curb and installing a 10-foot shared use path for bikes and pedestrians to provide an all ages and abilities bike route, as well as a pedestrian facility on that south side. And then the grass terrace space between the path and the street. In the constrained areas, we're looking at 3 to 4 feet terrace. In other areas where there's space, a bit more. And zoom out, we've got a big overview exhibit here that I can quickly run through, starting on the west side. So the project limits, we're starting at the Wayland Drive intersection. I'll mention the Safe Streets project that was just presented included a RFB across Moreland on the intersection to the just left of Wayland. But this project, we're planning to redo the curb ramps at all 4 corners at this intersection, shifting in that south side curb. There's a bit of sidewalk here that will be replaced with the 10-foot wide asphalt path. Here, there's some ample room for a pretty wide terrace. And then I'll also mention setting up on the west side of Wayland Drive, setting up for the potential continuation of some sort of path on Moreland Road, at the very least, creating a safe crossing to get across Wayland here. And then, yeah, essentially the cross-section of the 10-foot wide path continues. We've got some community gardens here. I've been in contact with them about the project. They're probably one of the largest drivers of the need of on-street parking on Moreland here. So we're proposing a parking pocket on the south side of the street where we've got some space to fit that in. Moving the parking area outside of the bend to keep that bend narrower, keep those speeds lower. There is a history of crashes at this bend. So moving the parking pocket onto the straight tangent section. And then in this existing cornfield area, it's actually getting redeveloped into a solar site. It's owned by MMSD, the sewage district, and they've recently gone through a redevelopment process to install a solar field here. With that redevelopment, we were able to get some easements, permanent and temporary for grading of the path here, which allows us in some spots to have a wider terrace, shift the path back, rather than constrained to just use that existing street footprint. There are some bioretention areas that we're looking to avoid to not have any stormwater issues on kind of either side of this farm field site. And then there are also some larger canopy trees existing in this area that we are looking to avoid. This house is gone. I think it will be a part of the solar site, but the trees there, the large trees are still around. So we'll be preserving trees where we can. And then as we continue to the east, as we get to the mobile home park area, this is where we have a constrained section with poles and trees directly behind the curb. So we've got a narrower terrace here, maintaining the 10-foot wide path. Some modifications to a bus stop right by Manor Drive here. And then continuing to the east, we'll have the path connection to the Cap City Trail, which can continue north into downtown, or to the east to the Lake Farm County Park in connection to Moreland. And that is pretty much the summary of the project. At a public meeting, well received by the neighborhood. Like I said, we have some federal funds through the Transportation Alternative Program, and we're looking to get this constructed in 2028. So yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks, Aaron. Comments or questions for Aaron? Harold, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Aaron. Very exciting to see this moving forward. Since you mentioned the solar development, somebody asked me a while ago, are there any plans for a north-south connection, like somewhere like to get from Wayland or to get from Moreland down to the Baxter Spur Trail? Because, you know, if you want to go north-south as somebody walking or biking, you kind of have to go over Wayland, Engelhart, or Fell Road and then go back. So it's pretty indirect. And I was like, oh, there's a big farm field supply that's going to get redeveloped. And now I hear it's going to be a solar farm. Like, yeah, is there any thought of maybe having a path connection north-south there?
Yeah, that's a good question.
There has
thought about that
been
myself.
discussion about that, and I can't recall. I'm trying to zoom over to see if I can jog my memory. I know Don at Traffic, we were talking about some kind of connection down there. And I think there's like a bunch of easements that are possible that we could connect to. So, yes, we have talked about it. I don't think we have a plan formulated at this point.
Okay.
But I'll bring that up again. I meet with the district a bunch on other stuff, so we could bring that up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it affects the design of the path because it would be perpendicular.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking in terms of connectivity. I mean, that connection wouldn't have made sense without the Moreland path and vice versa. And so, yeah, I think looking into that would be great. And then would you mind going to the eastern end of yeah. I'm just thinking about like tying into the Cap City Trail, you know, it's a turn there, there's some gradient. I mean, I guess maybe just take a look like where's the best spot to tie into the Cap City Trail. Will it make sense to offset it a little bit in one way or the other in terms of speed, visibility? I think the way you have it is probably pretty good, but yeah, just thinking about, I think it's pretty, yeah, there are some gradients and turns and people cutting corners. So that's all I have.
Yep, definitely thought about that connection. I will still tinker with that a bit. It's a little bit of a sharp spot, but I definitely, whatever we do there, we'll keep it, you know, extra wide with wide radii to make those curves smoother.
Yeah, and since you're rebuilding the curbs there, I guess that's possibly also an opportunity to tighten up the intersection, because I think that's also, there have been some crashes at Southtown and Moreland there. So, yeah.
Yep, we can look into that as well.
Other comments or questions? This is a very dangerous stretch of road, so our neighborhood very much appreciates this. There are places where there are not sidewalks on Moreland Road, and it's very, very dangerous. So lots of kids, lots of people walking. lots of people biking. So we're really looking forward to this in the neighborhood. And what you suggested, Harold, about that other connection, that would be really super to have that rather than having to go way around as you were describing. Yeah, yeah. Anybody have any other comments or questions? Okay, thanks so much. So next we have the West Town Path. Is that you again, Aaron?
It sure is.
Okay.
Yep. Rounding it out. Yeah, getting right into it. This is another exciting path connection. This is a long time coming. Looking to fill a pretty significant gap in the West Town Path corridor. It's been filled in, I'm sure folks are aware, over many years, over different phases. So this is an exciting, you wouldn't say last phase, but big piece of the connection. We're calling it West Town Path Phase 2B. Phase 2A was completed within the last, I think last year it was completed around a new development at Zorshrine Place. And so Phase 2B will be the green line to connect from what was recently completed to the Gammon Road underpass. And then you will have a full path connection on the West Town corridor from starting at Whitney Way on the east end all the way through to High Point and Junction Road. So definitely going to be big for the west side and the far west side. And yeah, here are some recent pictures from the completed Phase 2A. Section on the left here is a bit tighter than what we're looking at with Phase 2B, but a similar condition where we'll have, the belt line is on the left. There'll be a guardrail, fence, side slope, a wall, and then section of gutter and path. Path lighting as well will be included in the continuation. And then on the right here is the easterly end of the Phase 2A section, and the new path will continue up this slope that you see here. Here are some pictures of where the new path will go. Much of it will stay along the Beltline Highway. There is pretty decent right-of-way space to work with here, but modifying that ditch space to fit in the path. And then on the right is where the Gammon Road underpass outfalls into West Town Mall, Portillo's on the left here. So here's an overview schematic for the project. And zooming in a bit, starting on the west side, we'll be continuing 10-foot wide asphalt path lighting throughout what was previously built. We're working with MSCR, who owns the site at 7333 West Town Way. They are excited about this path connection. They are working with us on an easement needed to fit this in, and they have also they're wanting a connector path to get directly to their site. So we'll be working with them on that as well, something to get directly into their parking lot. And then pretty steep slope here. The path will climb up that slope into the WSDOT right of way, where it will continue kind of following along the northern edge of the WSDOT right of way, along those ATC poles. Continuing in the highway right of way here, this is kind of the top of the hill slope. This is the Urban Air Trampoline Park for reference. And then continuing to the east, the path will come down in grade going east and take advantage of an existing easement that we have at this site around the Portillo's to come down to grade and then connect into the underpass area. We are likely going to be adding guardrail along the Beltline Highway shoulder along this whole stretch. Currently, it's just the open clear zone, so there's no guardrail or barrier there. So we'll be adding that with the path. There will be a retaining wall through much of it. Again, looking similar to what the previous path looked like. And we'll be, largely building on easements that are in the works, already established, or on WISDOT highway right-of-way, potential for some temporary easements needed from property owners, and we'll be working with them as needed. This project is receiving federal funds as well. It's actually going to be a DOT-led contract, and we're expecting construction in 2028. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Aiden, can you please remind me, do we have anybody registered to speak on this item?
We do not. We have one person registered as available for questions, so Garrett Lowe supports.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions for Aaron? Not see any hands. Any comments or questions? Harold, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Aaron. Where's the MSCR parcel? And is that where they've been? I saw some news reporting that they're considering building a pool out there. Is that the same area?
Well, the MSCR parcel is 7333 West Town Way. I don't know anything about a pool.
Okay. All right. And they already own this, and this has always been MSCR?
They do own this, or I think it maybe technically is owned by the school district. MSCR is kind of under their umbrella. I'm not totally sure how long they've been there.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, that's pretty short term. That it used to be a store a little while ago.
Okay. Yeah, in my mental model, this is all mall. And so, yeah, okay. Good to know. A question to which I probably already know the answer, how to get from the path to the mall, other than, I guess, the MSCR connector, but like, closer to Gammon. Presumably the mall doesn't want that, and therefore we can't build it.
Yeah, so I could jump in a little bit here. So we had some initial talks with the kind of the eastern parcel owner here. I guess it would be 53 West Town Mall. They were I think pretty much generally interested in creating a connection, but we're not gonna necessarily tie our project to it. If we can get their cooperation, we'll do it. You can physically come along Gammon Road there. There's a connection along the kind of, if you go north on Gammon Road, you can get yourself back down to grade kind of in that Portillo's area. What we do also expect is whenever any of these pads, you can see there's 3 pads there that are undeveloped right now. So when those come in for development, we would have them build a connection as well. So we'll definitely have the 2, maybe a 3rd, and then most certainly more in the future as things develop.
Sounds good. Yeah, the connection along Gammon, technically, yes, it exists, but it's not great. But yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is, again, super exciting. This has been in the works for so long, and now it's getting built. Yay.
Anybody else have any other comments or questions? I don't want to embarrass you, Aaron, but I heard that you are leaving us. Is this your last Transportation Commission meeting?
It will be, yep. Which is why I've got so many items here, in part why.
Well, I wanted to mention something because I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for all of your great work. We've seen you and heard from you and been witness to your really outstanding work. And so just wanted to pass along my personal appreciation and give anybody else an opportunity to say something if they'd like to, because we really do have really had some great experiences working with you and wanted to say thanks. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Ann. This is the first I've heard that you were leaving here, and I want to thank you for all your work, great work that you did on Hammersley, the shared use path, and getting that project. And I think you ran into a lot of initial obstructions, but I think everything I've heard after the project was built, they all like it. So I think that's a testament to your great work. Thanks. Good luck.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else have any other comments? Again, thanks so much, Aaron and Chris. And anybody have any last comments on the project or for Aaron? Okay, thanks so much.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you all. I've learned a lot presenting to this commission over the years, and sad to leave, and look forward to coming back to Madison and seeing some of these projects get built. Be fun.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Aaron. You've had a big impact.
All right.
Okay, we're having a big storm at my house. I don't know if anybody else is having lots of thunder and lightning, but we have lots of thunder and lightning. Hopefully my power is going to hang in there, knock on wood. So we move on to item number 6, which is election of chair and vice chair. So a couple reminders. The Transportation Commission ordinance does allow for alder to be chair, co-chair, or vice chair. And per the city attorney's office, alternates cannot be selected as chair or vice chair. So those are the two big reminders. So the floor is open for nominations for chair. Alder Okovich.
I'll nominate Ann Kovich for chair.
Okay, thank you. Harold?
If that requires a second, I would second that.
Okay, I don't think a second is required, but it's fine if you'd like to. So
I'll
there's
do
a
it
nomination.
anyway.
Okay, great. There's a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations? For some reason, I have to ask it 3 times. Are there any other nominations? Last call for any other nominations. Okay, is there a motion to close the nominations and select the chair? And we do need a second required for that. Robbie.
Move to close the nominations and unanimously vote for Ann as chair.
Thank you, Alder Okovich.
One second.
Okay. I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, well, thanks for your vote of confidence in me. I really do appreciate it, and I'll try and continue on and do a good job as chair in the future. So the floor is open for nominations for vice chair. Harold.
Nominating Chris McHale.
Okay.
Second.
Robbie? Okay, there's a motion and a second to nominate Chris as vice chair. Chris, I assume you're agreeable to that? Okay, that's a thumbs up. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Last call for any other nominations. Okay, so we need a motion to close the nominations and select the vice chair. Harold.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Alder Okovich has a second. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no, wishes to abstain, or wishes a roll call vote. So please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Thanks, Chris, for agreeing to continue serving. So we will move forward as we have in the past with me as the chair and Chris as the vice chair. And thanks for your votes of confidence, much appreciated. Okay, so we move on to item 7, which is crossover reports from anybody who's a member of other transportation related BCCs. Do we have any reports from anybody tonight? Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you very much for calling on me. I wanted to acknowledge that the Disability Rights Commission did end up writing a recommendation to transportation engineering, traffic engineering, excuse me, to seek out more safety measures to keep pedestrians and bicyclists safe in Madison on city streets. It was, I'm assuming, delivered at one of the Common Council's meetings, but I haven't heard back anything of it. There's not much more to it. It was basically, stop hitting people and having apathy and lawlessness. So in case you heard about it and wondered why I didn't mention it, I wanted to mention it. And I'm hoping that it helped move the needle just a little bit more. And that's my report.
I'm trying to mute myself when I'm not talking. Everybody see that the Madison Police Department has their program where they're stepping up enforcement to help reduce speeding and to help ensure pedestrian and bicycle safety. So, Lynn, I think there's a big movement across the city to work on that, and clearly the work that we do here and the work that everybody does on the related groups that we're talking about here, is everybody's aimed in that same direction. So as our highest priority. So thanks. Anybody have any other reports? Okay. So we will move on to general announcements, and I don't have any this evening. Look at future agenda items. One we had was the public hearing on the removal of RP3 parking on Mill Street, but based on what Tom said, that sounds like that'll likely be moved later, Tom, than the July 15th meeting. Is that correct?
I think that's likely, yeah.
Okay. So we'll see going forward, but that's at least on the agenda. Something else that's that's queued up is updates to the Complete Green Streets Guide. This will likely need to be put back to a future meeting, just because I think Harold sent an email with some thoughts about updates to Complete Green Streets. I have some thoughts that I'm in the process of drafting with regard to thoughts about it. If anybody else has any comments or questions that they'd like to see addressed in an updated version of Complete Green Streets, the Regent Street discussions brought up a lot of great points and gives us a lot of opportunity, I think, to enhance Complete Green Streets to reflect some of the feedback that we have received. So while we've got it queued up to talk about, my guess is that it will probably be pushed out a little bit, but please send your comments over. You can send them directly to Liz Callan, or you forward them to me, I'll shoot them on to Liz or Max or Tom. They can send them to you and you can shoot them forward. But it's a great opportunity for us to reflect on some of the things that we've heard in some really great discussions that we've had about Complete Green Streets lately. The Department of Transportation Annual Operations Report, Perry Street Connection Study, those are both slated to come forward, and I think the timing is pretty good on those. Potentially Metro's Metro Transit's route/service report card, accessibility update, something that we've been talking about. And I know Denise, the folks from Metro Transit have been meeting with you on some items. So that's a topic that we're looking forward to. And potentially parking garage rates and fees, biannual rate adjustment for the towing charge. And we do have other things that we've been looking forward to having, including the no right on red discussion, but Yang's gone till July 10th. So we may want to, I think we should wait till he's back to have that. But we do track all of those. We've just had some long meetings lately. So, we're trying to keep the meetings at a better length for everybody's sanity. So anybody have any other ideas for potential future agenda topics to add to the list? No? Okay. We need a motion to adjourn then. Harold.
So moved.
Okay, Robbie.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote. And thanks to everybody for another great meeting. And stay safe. It seems to have stopped thundering here, so hopefully it's moved on through. So take care, everybody, and thanks so much.